Hey guys, Patrick Kuhle here for the TennisONE podcast. My co-host Madison is going to join later in the show. She's down in Charleston right now, but we had to talk about Miami because we were just down there for almost 3 weeks, TennisONE being the official app. And we've got a special guest today who is also down there. I don't know about 3 weeks. I mean, he lives there, so we'll see. But we have West Lamy from Miami of WorldWideWest.com. Wes is a play-by-play commentator and writer for his own site. Wes, thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
Man, Patrick, man, just like you survived Miami. You look great. Stuff.
I'm like, something looks better about me, and I realize it's definitely the tan.
Yeah. Well, I told you, man, you look good. Honestly, I'm not making this up. Remember, I told you, I said you look good. You look like you've been, you're ready for some tennis action.
Yeah.
Some qualifying action with you, man.
Well, where were you at the Miami Open media tournament? They had that tennis tournament for just media. I didn't see you out there.
Well, that's a very, very good question, Patrick. That week, as you may know, in the outside tennis sports world, it was just bananas down here in terms of college basketball down here with Florida Atlantic and University of Miami, both in the Final Four, both hoping to see each other. And then there were times I was literally in Boca Raton, and then there were times I had to drive in Coral Gables, so I didn't get to see much of that. But I usually hear, I kind of get a little insight, especially from you about how it went. But I completely missed that, man. Yeah.
Well, next year. I mean, how'd those games go, by the way? I didn't see.
Oh yeah. We 2 in, 2 out. How about that?
2 in, 2 out.
We showed up, and then we showed up, then we went back home.
Yeah, that's tough. I went to, that was one night where we actually got to go to dinner because the tennis was earlier in the day, at the women's final, I think being on Saturday, and went to Yard House, and man, it was packed down there.
Oh, wow.
But those Florida Atlantic fans, you should have seen the look on their face when that bucket went in at the end. Ooh.
The Butler did it.
Yeah,
the Butler did it.
That was tough.
It's March Madness, man. That's where it is, man.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying, I didn't watch hardly any of it because, like you said, we were at the Miami Open for 3 weeks, and for TennisONE, it's kind of our Super Bowl because it's our biggest partner.
Absolutely.
And Laura and I are running around with our heads cut off. So,
no, you guys run the show down there. You've come a long way, Patrick. I'm like, oh, hey, Patrick, my name's West Lamy. Next thing you know, your TennisONE's all over the place at the Miami Open. Plastered TennisONE.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wow.
They did amazing.
And Laura's hanging out with Jamie Foxx. Must be nice.
It must be nice. I didn't even get to meet Jamie Foxx, but you know what? We can't all be at Laura's level yet. But yeah, they did an amazing job with our logo was like everywhere this year. And some people asked me, the official part, like, are you the official sponsor of this tournament? And I was like, no, but you would almost think so with having our logo on the scoreboard. And no, they're too nice to us. So that was amazing. But how many years?
And hats off to you guys.
Hats
off to you guys, Pat. You guys, the app is great. I really mean it. And just this alone, man, you guys are treading in the right direction. I really mean that.
No, we definitely appreciate that. And Wes, you gave us some feedback last year on some things that we could have improved, and we did for sure make at least one of them with that article notification. So yeah, we definitely appreciate your feedback every year. And anyone else that wants to submit feedback, like, seriously, hit us up on social media. Like, it's an app; it changes every day, and we know there's always something that can be improved, and nothing's ever super easy. So yeah. Anything, just hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. So, but let's talk about you. Can I just ask? Let's just start with this. First of all, you guys should know Wes covers like every sport. If you go to his website, worldwidewest.com, like there's 10 different tabs because it's like, what sport don't you cover almost? Like, what was the first sporting event that you covered in the Miami area? Do you remember?
It's so just for your fact checkers out there, Patrick. So I'm very fortunate, like literally straight out of college. I went to Syracuse University, straight out of college. I was fortunate to get a job at ESPN as a production assistant. And then from there, I started covering sports literally in Chicago, Illinois, Midwest.
I know Chicago. I lived there for 7 years, so I know it.
Yeah. Wow, me 8 years. 8 years. So that was great. And then So I started covering literally sports, literally in Chicago, and also got my foot into play-by-play. But my very first, and from Chicago to Miami, but my very first Miami sporting event was covering the Miami Heat, which coincidentally was LeBron's last year, 2013, 2014. What I didn't think it would have been LeBron's last year, but yeah. And then literally I walk into covering one of the greatest NBA teams in the history of sports. And then but there was a lot that led into that because my history of covering the WNBA in Chicago, just so much, you don't just get out of college and then you start covering the NBA like that. Some people do, which they can, but that was my very first sporting event. And then you know how it is, Patrick. You just build up from there. Your credentials from covering the Heat, and then I start covering Dolphins and the Marlins, and it's just right in my backyard. So it's easy for me to cover so many events. It is, but like you said, like you come from Milwaukee to come to the Miami Open in Miami, and then we got the F1 coming up, and so it's just so easy to just wake up and say, "Oh, okay, I'm going to go cover an event."
Yeah. Well, so what was the first year that you covered the Miami Open, the tennis?
Wow, so that's a very good question. So my first year was 2016. It was still on. It was still at Key Biscayne. But the thing was, when it was on Key Biscayne, there was limited space, so I didn't have as much access 2 weeks like this. They used to actually. I think when I was there, I had off. There's the space. So like I was able to cover like the first week or something, but they were like, hey, space and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't mind. I didn't mind it. Just how to just being there was pretty awesome. But that's the key thing that's interesting with the Miami Open, what they've done from coming from Key Biscayne, the location and everything. It's been a big deal. So I used to it was Key Biscayne, and it was kind of, I don't want to say cram. Cram is not the right word, but it wasn't that much space with Key Biscayne. And honestly,
yeah,
yeah.
For sure.
Correct. But the thing is too, Patrick, like I think if like what you and Laura do now, if you guys were able to, it would probably have been hard for you guys to do what you do now at Key Biscayne. It was just a little, my opinion, in terms of not much space.
Yeah. Well, they almost have too much space now. I mean, there's, you could never run out of rooms in the Dolphins football stadium to, host the media and whatever
Yeah.
else. So yeah, it's they've got plenty of space now, that's for sure. But it was fun. I like that Key Biscayne location. It was kind of like, yeah, it was kind of falling apart at the end, but like it was I don't know, it just had that aura, it had that vibe when you were there. And
Absolutely. Yeah. It was on the
it's
water.
not like you're
It was on the
more in
water.
Miami than you do when you're at Hard
Right.
Rock. But I don't know. It's what they do to turn the Dolphins facility into a tennis facility is amazing. And yeah, a great job with it. But yeah, maybe it's just being sentimental.
Yeah, but also too, remember it was on the water, Patrick,
Yeah.
that's Miami. You come for the water, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something you can't take away. But it's one of those things where, pros and cons, pros
Yeah.
and cons.
100%. So what do so first year, 2016, covering Miami Open, was that the first time you covered tennis as a sport, or had you done it somewhere else?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then it goes back to what I was saying in terms of it being in my background. You can imagine you have this tennis tournament here, and I'm saying to myself, man, I love tennis. And then, obviously with just the major storylines of Serena and Venus. And then obviously you have players I grew up just really a fan of.
Yeah.
Jim Kerr, who, by the way, I ran into the elevator and I had 2 cups of coffee in my hand. And no, 2 cups of tea. I had a cup of coffee and a cup of tea. And I'm thinking, oh my God, Jim Courier in the elevator. I remember watching you growing up, and I can't even take a picture with him because I got cups of coffee in my hand. But anyway, so so Pat, and that's how it is at the Miami Open, Patrick. You just run into like Jim Courier. But to make a long story short, yeah, I love the sport, man. The sport is just so beautiful, and first time I really covered it. But again, covering it was to an extent where you just got to take it all in because it can get a little overwhelming. You're just so much, like, wow. And then you're like, wow, I'm here. And then you're like, okay, hello, you got to get to work. You're here, but you got to get to work.
Yeah.
And yeah, but looking back on it on a scale of 1 to 10, my tennis coverage from now to then, I can say that, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe my tennis coverage when I started, I thought it was a 6, when
Okay.
in reality it was a 4.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, I'm covering tennis, it's tennis, and then it was, in reality, it was a 4. And then today I can say I'm honestly a 7, and that's starting with the help of, like, I call him the Bruce Lee of tennis. Richard Pagalero is a great guy out of New York. You probably met Richard. He's awesome, man. You got to pick his brain whenever you run into him. He's a great guy. I'm always picking his brain. And then obviously just the resources of talking to people like you, the ATP contacts, the WTA contacts, and then just the other writers, man. The other writers are always bouncing off each other. They always want, stuff from me, stuff from big writers, stuff from small writers.
Yeah.
And then and just the players, man. You know how did you know those press conferences? I know you get the exclusives, Patrick, but those press conferences are the best, man. I don't know. You sit through them; they're the best. The players are open, especially the women. They're just open,
Yeah.
I think the transcript of the year was that women's doubles. That women's doubles. Were you there for the women's doubles?
Yeah, for Jess and Coco. That was so good. If you
Yeah,
find the transcript, guys, it was hilarious. They were
yeah,
like almost, it's like that feeling when it's super late at night, like midnight one, and you're just kind of like feeling woozy or whatever, and you're just kind of like super loose,
tired.
whatever,
Yeah,
like it wasn't at that time of day,
yeah,
but like that's what it was like, they just
yeah.
whatever
And
they,
you're like, look, I'm done with a 2-week tournament.
yeah, yeah, it's a long one.
They had rain delays and everything. So yeah, yeah. But that was great. But those are things that really make you, like, um, say, hey, okay, look, my tennis coverage now is just so much better compared to, like, what it was. And again, like, going back to Richard, for example, he's covered tennis for years. I mean, like, I'm not even close.
Yeah,
What am I, like, 5 years in? Whatever, whatever. But this guy has covered tennis for years, and he shares so much with me, and there's so many other people there, man. Like, people, I think this, Patrick. People who you really talk to there, they love the sport. It's not like, people are just there to just hang out. People really love the sport, and you get so much cool insight.
yeah, for sure. It's I mean, I was gonna ask you, like, surely there has to be something looking back when you first started covering. Was there something that you did that now you look back and you're like, oh, it's kind of like I can laugh at myself now, but it's kind of funny that I like did
Well,
it that way? Or
well. Here's a story, Pat. You got to hear this.
yeah,
So my first year at Hard Rock, my first year at Hard Rock, which,
that'd be
if
20.
this stands, maybe, yeah, yeah, which may be, if it stands, which may be Serena's last year.
Okay.
So hear me out on this. So I remember I was in the press conference, and Serena, I'm like, oh wow, Serena's, this is a Serena press conference. So, like, there's probably no room in a Serena press conference in terms of seats. So anyway, make a long story short, we're asking Serena questions, and they have the moderator pointing out who can pick or whatever. Serena is her own moderator.
She just
And
points at people herself.
she points, she's like, okay, I'm taking this question from this person. And I'm like, whoa, Serena is, and I don't know if you remember, I don't know, you may have been there. So anyway, so I see Serena moderating, like, her own press conference. And then I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, okay, I'm gonna ask a question. Is she even gonna pick me?
Yeah.
So anyway, to make a long story short, I ask her a question, and I'm her last question of
Oh,
maybe
it's gotta be a
Miami
good
Open history. Of maybe Miami Open history.
one. Wow. What was the
And then,
question?
oh my God, Patrick, I can't even remember the question. I was just in shock of her moderating the press conference. But at
Yeah.
the same time, I'm like, whoa, this is Serena Williams, the GOAT of tennis overall, and stuff. And then obviously after that press conference, she withdrew, and then we had COVID, and
Yeah.
I haven't seen her since then. Yeah. But it's one of those things I look back to this day, and then everyone is like, and then Patrick, everyone is like, yeah, that's Serena, man. That's how she does it. I'm like, really? She just, and I look back and I'm like, I got a question into Serena. She picked me,
Yeah.
and then it's one of those, like, literally, next question, you're last. I'm like, yeah, Serena, and then everyone was like respectfully listening to Serena picking the people.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because I was at the U.S. Open this year covering for TennisONE, and you know, at the US Open, we are not an official partner like we are in Miami, you know, so we are just standard media. So we go to the press conferences as well, because that's when we can ask the questions. We don't really get like our own one-on-ones for the most part. But the Serena press conference, because, you know, it was kind of her last year, sort of, she made it seem like she's never playing the Open again, which we'll see. She might get the itch again, but she didn't officially retire, but she kind of made it seem like she's going to be done. The press conferences, you had to be invited ahead of time. So not just anybody could even come in the press conference. So even if you weren't going to ask a question, you wanted to just sit in there and listen, like you couldn't even do that. So it was,
wow.
She had the USTA in the palm of her hand on that one, you know, just kind of.
And Patrick, these and Patrick, these are the stories that I'm hearing during the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these are stories I'm able to sit in, and all these guys are telling me these stories about like Serena and Roger and Novak, and like you hear these stories, and I'm like, wow, what? Like, and this is again, this is what goes back to like a tennis writer, like better in terms of the game itself. Because you hear these stories, obviously that's an interesting story. But when you hear the story of the games and this and that, and just amazing stories, you know, I won't go too much into it right now, but the stuff I hear and I listen to, and I'm like, wow, you know, I joke around, I joke around with you guys about like, oh, Laura hanging out with Jamie Foxx, but when you really like get some insight, it's like, wow, yeah.
And there's so many different stories in tennis. You know, I think I would guess that most of the sports you cover, all the athletes are sort of competing in one contest, you know, like one game, or F1, it's one race. But in tennis,
correct,
story on, you know, 12 different courts, because there's, you know, all these different matches going on, and you kind of have to decide which one am I going to pay attention to, you know. Where did you land on that this year?
Well, that's the thing where it's one of those things where you I know we're gonna get a chance. We'll talk about some picks in a bit, but like it's one of those things when like you sit back and you hear the story of Eubanks, for example, and stuff, and then you hear about like obviously just Sloane being out on the first night. There's so many things that you I don't know how to describe it, but like the storylines write themselves without you. That's the thing about tennis. Like you can go in, you know there's a tournament. Eventually there's gonna be the doubles winner, women's winner, men's winner, you know, per se. But in those 2 weeks, man, day after day, like there's so many things you learn about. And Coco talking about she's been watching March Madness of all the women and supporting LSU, and you know, and there's so many things that go into it. But at the end of the day, you learn about Coco and her acting skills and her having like a TV appearance and stuff. And it's like, wow, she's like, I suck at acting. And you're like, wow, like, you know.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, there's storylines where you hear the same questions about Jessica Pegula, you know, being a family member of the owners of the Bills and stuff. And you know, and you play in a rivalry stadium where the Dolphins play.
Yeah.
But she takes it in stride, you know.
She lives in Boca.
So it's one of those things where like, yeah, exactly. Nothing against that. She can live wherever she wants, obviously. But at the end of the day, you know, hey, we know she flies the Bills flag.
Oh yeah.
Where the owner of the Dolphins obviously, you know, resurrected this tournament back here in South Florida. So there's so many things that go into it. And then at the end of the day, even like when you go into like just the differences, like I'm always hearing about the differences from what the men make compared to the women. And there's so many things in that standpoint too, Patrick, where you say to yourself, wow, there's a lot to take in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, you bring up the Dolphins owner sort of resurrecting this tournament. I mean, it's amazing. Hard Rock. I went to the tournament in 2019, and you know that was before they had the F1. Obviously, the Dolphins have been there.
Yeah.
That facility is just kind of becoming like the mecca for sports, you know, with how much variety you have there. So I'm curious, like, how does the Miami Open compare to a Dolphins game or compare to the F1? You know, like, it's obviously much
Yeah.
longer. It's 2 weeks versus 4 days,
Yeah.
1 day.
So Patrick, so let me share this with you. And I know you mentioned how I cover so many sports. So like the first few days, I'm walking on campus and stuff, and I'm walking with Richard and stuff. And then there was one day my brother came to the tournament. I hooked him up with some tickets. And Richard is like, man, Wes, everywhere you go, the security's like dapping you up, and everyone's like saying what's up to you and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, this is Hard Rock Stadium at the end of the day. And the funny thing is that like literally every corner I'm turning, everyone's like, Wes, what do you think about the Dolphins this year? What do you think about the Dolphins? What do you think about the Dolphins? I'm like, well, we'll see. What do you think about this? They just got Ramsey and Tua the guy. And I'm like, well, we'll see. And by the way, guys, I'm here at a tennis tournament.
Yeah.
So, so the point I say that is that like with the history, of the tournament being on Key Biscayne, and the space and traffic just to get to Key Biscayne, and at a point where it was actually an issue, and you mentioned it, it was kind of falling apart, and a lot of people thought that sometimes that it was a bit elitist when it was at Key Biscayne too.
Okay.
But also that was because of the space. That's because of the space.
Yeah.
So with that being said, it was one of those things where it was just brilliantly moved to Hard Rock Stadium, just brilliantly the way they moved it, and at the same time, the way that they turned it into a tennis oasis. That's just brilliant. And this year, I really feel like it's one of the best this year, obviously with that concert series that they had, man, having Petra come out with Kuhle and the gang and the trophy. And you saw the fans, man, the diverse group of fans who came out. It was just amazing. So the fact that they're able to, the timing of it, obviously post NFL season, right in the heart of the NBA season coming to an end here in South Florida, baseball about to start, the timing of it all and the oasis of it, it's perfect. It's perfect. So in terms of it being here at this time, it's great. Would they be able to figure something out during the NFL season? No, I don't think so. Obviously, it'd just be too much, in my opinion. But it ranks up there. Tell people, look, it's worth it. People love it. People love it. People love it. You really found a true following of tennis followers here in South Florida, with the timing of it all. So it's very just, how do I say, laid back, relaxed, South Florida, the food, the vibe, it's all there. It's all there for the taking. You can't miss it. You know what I mean? And it's perfect. It's South Florida in and out.
Yeah.
And at the same time, again, the timing of it all, of it falling into where it falls, But if this was like the Dolphins has had a playoff run and everything, it probably wouldn't be as popular as it is. But the timing of it all is great. It's great. It's great. I think in terms of it overall, it's still a Dolphin city in terms of NFL, big NFL city. But they know what they're doing. Yeah, they know what they're doing in terms of having this time. So it's great. It's great. It's great.
All they're missing is a Flanagan's on site. They just need to put one of those.
I'm telling you, man, you got to get the ribs, the rib rolls.
Oh yeah.
You're right.
Was like, I mean, we'd get out of the tournament so late, like 11:30 or midnight at best. That's like best case scenario. But almost every restaurant near where we're staying in Aventura is closed by the time we leave. So it's basically like Uber Eats every night. And we just once we were like, we just want to go to a restaurant. And everybody's like, well, Flanagan's still open. And
go to Flanagan's.
And every single person, it's like everyone's brainwashed. They use the exact same phrase every time. Everybody's like, Flanagan's, it's a South Florida staple. Like just
South Florida staple. The ribs.
Yeah.
The ribs.
Yeah. I got the ribs. They were very
they got the rib rolls. They got that going on. And of course their wings, man. People love their wings on Wednesdays.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Is that a Wing Wednesday? That's like a deal they have or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Big deal.
That's funny.
Big deal, yeah. But overall, But and it's interesting because Flanagan's is a big staple during the NFL season. They have a Flanagan's bus. So whenever we go to Dolphins game, you see the Flanagan's bus there.
Yeah.
And they're great.
That's cool. Well, maybe next year, Miami Open, if you're listening, we want an on-site Flanagan's. That would be great if we could get that activation. But Wes, let's
You gotta
talk
get that.
about should we talk about how the tournament went? I know you made some pre-tournament picks, right? Okay, you want to share those with us
Yeah.
and we can see how they did?
So this is how I approach it all the time. You know, me being such a expert.
Been doing it since 2016.
I know, right? So my time is I always come up with a final four. So it's like a final two for men, final two for women.
Okay.
Okay. So I was looking really good. I had Jessica Pegula winning it all.
Yep.
All right. I had her facing the Russian Arena Sabalenka.
Yeah,
Okay.
Belarusian.
So
Yep.
yeah. And then for the men, I had Carlos Alcaraz, and Daniil Medvedev.
Okay.
All right. So those are my two. Those are my two.
The final
Obviously. Yeah. In Arena, I'm thinking, oh my God, Australian Open champion, right?
Yeah, she's playing great.
Yeah, she's great. She's gonna come down to Miami. She's got the nerves all set. And then obviously she was out. And then Jessica had that. Yeah. Yeah. And then,
Stay.
correct. And then Jessica was looking good, and then she had that night match, and then there was a delay, and I'm like, oh Lord.
Yeah.
And then she was out from there. And then obviously on the men's side, you know, the amazing tournament match, maybe the match of the tournament was Carlos and Sinner. That was just amazing. Yeah, that was just an amazing match overall, the match of the tournament. And then I really think obviously with the delay that Carlitos dealt with, and then he played the back-to-back. My opinion, I think that played a factor, but he doesn't make excuses.
Yeah, he wouldn't make an excuse on that,
Yeah.
but he did look a little winded there. I mean, he has to work so hard during his matches. You know, the guy gets literally every ball, doesn't give up on anything.
Yeah,
He definitely looked
exactly.
at the end there. But
Exactly. And then obviously you have the story of Eubanks. You know, Eubanks was just amazing. Christopher Eubanks, you know, qualifying player, and then he goes up to Medvedev, and obviously Medvedev took care of business from that. And then Medvedev, yeah, he eventually went on and faced Sinner, and then and that's what happened. So I had one of four possible predictions right, but
yeah.
I'd even had Medvedev winning.
But most of your other players at least made the semis. I think Sabalenka lost in the quarters, but
Correct.
Pegula lost in the semi, and then Carlitos obviously to center. But yeah, Eubanks, that's worth noting for sure. I mean, that was when he beat, I believe it was Barrère, the French guy.
Correct.
That win moved him into the top 100 in the live rankings. And that was one of the coolest. It wasn't in the main press conference room. It was at the mix zone.
The mix zone, yeah.
Did you see that? I mean, he was like, he was crying quite a bit afterwards. You could see like how much it meant to him. And everybody really likes Chris, you know, that goes to tournaments frequently, that even goes, you know, to the 250s and stuff. And that's where he's played a lot of his pro tennis, is kind of at the 250 level for the most part. And then obviously in qualifyings and stuff at other tournaments. But like, he's such a nice guy. And he's also, you know, he does play-by-play for Tennis Channel. So he even called a match during this year's Miami Open for Tennis Channel. I think it was Bublik and Wolf. It was a first round match. He literally did play-by-play for that match in the booth. And then he goes out and makes this run to the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and I've heard he's amazing on Tennis Channel. I've heard that over and over. They said he's great on Tennis Channel. So he's on track. Obviously, he's on track. Post tennis, possibly. You know, if he's on track with that. And obviously, with his earnings with tennis, yeah. But it's one of those things where you look at the story, Christopher Eubanks, right, and he talks about like, hey, he doesn't look at the rankings per se, and he stopped looking at the rankings. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, he said he stopped looking at the rankings, but at the same time, he's moving up and he's building his following. And obviously, Jamie Foxx flies in to come and see him. And Jamie Foxx is pumping him up on social media.
Yeah,
and obviously he dealt with a little bit of a delay. Ocho Cinco, another South Florida guy here and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things, Patrick, when you say to yourself, man, this guy, and he gave Medvedev a good run there. But, Medvedev was like, hey, it's all about consistency in the sport. He talks about it, so it's one of those things where, you're a story of a tournament, but year round, can you keep it consistent? That's a challenge he's going to have to face. And then you look on the women's side, age 33, winning her first Miami Open, and, the storylines behind her and surviving that just brutal, crazy attack, which is amazing. She was amazing. She was amazing.
Yeah.
And then under the radar, kept back up and won that tournament versus a young opponent. So it's just amazing in terms of what she's done too. So, and then with the middle of the tournament, we find Russians are going to be able to compete again in Wimbledon. So Medvedev is going to have a chance to compete and stuff, and that goes a lot to say. And one thing that I found amazing to Petra too was when she mentioned how her goal is just to win one tournament a year, at least. I think you were there when she said that, but that's a lot to be said. And you come in, you win an ATP 1000 in Miami. That's a lot, which is just under one of the 4 majors in tennis.
Yeah, I mean, it's her biggest title in a while. Obviously, she's won Wimbledon, I think, twice. So she's got one of the coolest stories for sure. I mean, I shouldn't say coolest, like just amazing in terms of, like you said, surviving that attack. Her doctor told her that she wasn't probably going to be able to hold a tennis racket after it happened.
Yeah, her hand,
playing hand that she got stabbed on. So like, it's pretty wild. She's one of the nicest players out there, and so it's really cool. She's one that everybody roots for, every time, and she has the game to take on anybody on any given day. I think, some people were asking her about her consistency. I think really the word was longevity that should have been used, because she's been around for a long time, and she kind of has peaks and valleys. Like all of a sudden she'll play really well and can beat literally anybody, and then she'll go on a little streak that is probably not up to the standard she wants to be. But so cool to see her win the tournament, and also against who is probably the like hottest player at the moment in terms of like the level that Rybakina is playing at, like making the Open final, winning Indian Wells. So a much sort of the whatever next gen of players here. So yeah,
and Rybakina came into that match undefeated in tiebreakers, and they played they played a 30-point tiebreaker, which is unreal in the opening
16,
set.
14, right?
The opening, 16-14 at 30-point tiebreaker, and in the Miami Heat, like literally, like guys, when you come to Miami Open, that heat engulfs in that stadium. They feel it down there, so it's easy for me to say, hey, it's I'm wearing t-shirts and shades, but those women are playing very well, and at that level, that opening set was just unreal. That tiebreaker,
Yeah. Well, everybody that sits in the stadium every day, like that's working or whatever, kind of knows, and the players know too, what time the court is going to be in full shade. And that was usually around like 2:50 or 3:00, somewhere around there. But if you were playing like the 1 p.m. match or noon early tournament, like that was a grind for sure. Because the court temperature obviously is probably 10-15 degrees warmer than what the normal temperature is. So
correct. Yeah, you gotta get your camera on the changeovers. So that side where the sun is, when the changeover happens, oh my god, everyone's hitting the exits.
Yeah,
like literally they're running for.
It's very obvious why they put the nice 72 club on that side of the stadium. We want to keep this,
especially during NFL season.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, oh my gosh. I was like, well, if they built the stadium like 20 more feet this way, would we be in sun earlier? Like, is that how it worked?
Yeah.
But
yeah, man, it's real.
Yeah.
You sit on that side.
Yeah, that's the side
we sit on that side.
I know how brutal it is just to sit there, and believe me, I don't want to complain about like watching tennis for a living, but to just kind of sit there, and you're on the court basically. I mean, where the photographer pit is, that's kind of where TennisONE was sitting, and it is hot. So we you definitely have to wear the sunscreen. Don't even think about trying to go without the sunscreen. So, but that's all right.
Okay, here's a little side story behind the scenes. So originally they gave us parking in this area, silver spot. Okay.
Okay.
And we had to walk from this area and I was like, guys, last year you guys gave us like parking in the stadium and I just pull up and go through security.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, oh, space, F1, we're getting ready for F1. And I'm like, guys, getting ready for F1. We gotta fix this. And thank God, God bless Lisa. I think she saw it in my face. I'm like, we gotta do something about this parking. So you can imagine lugging equipment and getting stuff and walking through that heat in the sun. And I'm just like, guys, you gotta do it. And then towards the end of the tournament, I start, dappering up a little bit in suit and tie. And I'm like, come on, guys. So thank God they adjusted. They were like, yeah, we get it. It's hot, man. It's hot.
Yeah. Well, the tournament, shout out Lisa and the tournament staff for sure, because they're super helpful down there. I couldn't say enough about them. So definitely one of the best tournaments to work with from our perspective for sure. So
yeah. I hear we got the best music. Patrick, everyone's like, Wes, man, you guys got the best music. Like in Wells. I don't know. I've never been in Wells, but I heard
a tournament that has like such a big focus on, this is obviously the first year that Miami Open has done this, right? Where they had Kuhle in the gang and then they had Sema Funk. They advertised like 2 stage music concerts. And they also had like half off Stella Artois beer during the concerts. And that's great. I would love to see more tournaments bring in some music. The Australian Open does like a little festival outside the grounds that they have big music acts and stuff, but there's not a lot of them that do it. So that was cool. Yeah. You know what else you guys hear? Oh, go ahead.
You go ahead. I just hear. I heard they always compared to Indian Wells, and they say Indian Wells, the music is I don't know. I hear it's dry per se, not much. Yeah.
Well, they definitely don't have. They're not bringing in the caliber of acts that Miami Open brought in this year. A lot of times, some of the other tournaments they'll have like the Bryan Brothers band, which they're good. They have their own band, and look them up. They like to play.
Exactly.
They're like kind of a jam band type thing, but like they're not cool in the gang. So yeah, that it's definitely an elevated
DJ, a resident DJ during a tournament is amazing.
Well, and I would even say I was at Indian Wells this year, and I love that tournament. And it's, the perfect time to be in Palm Springs. The weather's amazing. It's dry. You're not sweating as much as like in Miami. You have the mountains and the
humidity,
courts, and like it's beautiful. But I would say, as far as the energy, like Miami has way more energy, and like I don't know, there's just like a vibe at Miami that kind of gets you more excited, I think. Indian Wells, it's definitely a lot more chill, and I don't know. I think if you're looking for like a really good time or whatever, like Miami is. And then obviously the city of Miami, like Miami has a totally different energy than any other city. So that.
Yeah, we'll take that. We'll take that. Obviously, yeah. No, but overall, again, but like I said, I've never been to Indian Wells yet, but I hear it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Again, you just take in the info and go from there. And then, but you hear like obviously how, like I hear like at the U.S. Open, that like for example, I told you about the parking pass story here. I heard they don't give out parking passes at the U.S. Open or something like that. I hear that. It's so much.
Yeah, the U.S. Open it's strict for sure. I'll say that. This is our first year that we got credentialed there, and similar to your experience in Miami, the first year you did it, we didn't get the full period of the tournament. We got qualifying and then like half of the first week of main draw, which hey, we're happy with. Like we're a new company, so we're just happy to get in the door, and we appreciate that. But they are definitely the most strict, I would say, because they probably have the biggest TV deal of anybody, and they really have to defend the rights that they've sold to some of these groups. And so that's why they're so strict with like, don't even think about posting something on social media that maybe crosses a line in terms of like match footage or anything like that. They'll catch it in a second. Yeah.
Patrick, maybe you could tell me about this. I don't know the rules. There's times they say I can videotape some press conferences, and they say no for the men. And this is terms of Miami Open. I don't know all different terms, but I don't get the. It's weird. I try to get a clear understanding of it.
Well, the different tours, I think, even have different rules. I'm not sure. Maybe that'll change as they work more and more together, because they are starting to work more and more together. But for the most part, journalists, just if you're getting in as a journalist, most of the time they only let you record the audio. They won't let you take a picture of it if you're not a photographer. And then they won't, even pull out your cell phone and like snap a photo. They definitely don't want you recording the video of it. Even us as official app, we don't record the official press conferences. We usually get those one-on-ones that we do. And sometimes if it's a small enough group of reporters, they'll let us record the mix zone, sort of. But for the most part, they, it's kind of one of those things where they want to protect everyone's question. Like they want whoever is asking the question in the press conference to be able to use that question in their article before it gets posted as a video somewhere else, and I don't know if other sports do it like this or not. I think tennis, it feels like, is more strict than some of these other sports, but yeah. I mean, it would be like if, you West asked a question, got a really great response, and you're like, oh, this is great for my article, I'm whipping up a great headline, get people to come. TennisONE already posted the video of it on Twitter, and everybody already knows about it. And now my story is like, not as groundbreaking or interesting because the information's already out there somewhere. Yeah, that's my impression anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's fair game, but it's I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it could be a little clear.
Is tennis more strict than the other sports? I mean, obviously you cover some.
I've found it. Like there's been times where like I don't know if you know how they have the room, but they have like a private room for the players.
Mm-hmm.
So like you have a private room for the players. You can record audio, but you can't do video.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in 2024, man, 2023 per se, and like camera phones and everything,
Yeah.
Video is always in. And I mean, I understand, but it's just I don't know. I don't hear there's not clear rules written or told. It's not until you pull your phone out and they're like,
you do it, and then somebody like yells at you, no. Yeah. No, I agree that rules could be posted somewhere to make it more clear, just so everybody, because I read the media guide even, and it's not always clear who can do what. And I think sometimes tennis does some things that maybe restrict our growth a little bit. If we were a little more loose and let people promote it more, I would hope it'd be good for the sport, right?
Yeah. But also too, Patrick, I learned we look at the ATP WTA, and I had to learn that. I was like, well, there's the ATP WTA, but they're not really together. Yeah. And I was like, oh, really? I was like, oh, really? And then, that's a whole nother podcast, but, you learn that, and then you say, well, okay, I thought these people are cohesive together, but they're kind of separate, but they're together. They're in a tournament, but they're not. They get paid them.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh. Okay.
Well, especially at Miami Open, them hosting it at the Dolphins site, that kind of, there are a lot of layers to the tournament. There's like the people that work for the Dolphins, there's IMG, there's people that are hired under the name of the Miami Open tournament. So there's and then there's ATP WTA, who, like you said, they're more together now than they've ever been, but they still have all the same rules. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of logistics that I think can only be learned with like going to the tournament a bunch and probably getting yelled at once or twice. And then, I mean, I know I've got yelled at even this year for so don't spray aerosol sunscreen when there are photographers nearby. For the record, it sounds obvious now, but they let me know quickly when I said that stuff. So Yeah. Well, Wes, you told us your picks. Let me just run through. We did a Miami Open draft. I don't know if you've ever listened to these podcasts, Wes, but we basically, before Masters 1000s and Grand Slams, we do a draft where we can pick 4 players. Each player has to be in a different category. So the categories that we did were top 10 players, players that were in the new Netflix show, Breakpoint, players that are either a wild card or a protected ranking, so that, you know, kind of get into the tournament that way, and then field. So anyone else that doesn't fall into that category. And yeah, we just go through and do a snake draft. And it was myself, Laura, and Madison, who is our other TennisONE. You know, she's I say utility infielder. Honestly, we all, you know, we do interviews. So whatever you want to, multimedia journalist is probably the best word for Madison. But let me just tell you the results for anyone that listened to that podcast of who won. So just looking at the women first, Madison won the women's, and her team was Rybakina, who got the furthest of any of her players. Actually, let's just say this, we didn't do super well on the women's draft because you get 1 point every time your player wins a match. And Madison had and that was the winning team. So 2 of her players didn't get out of the first round. And then Montgomery won 1 match for her. And then Rybakina won 5, obviously getting to the final. So yeah, I mean, my best players were Krejcikova and Badosa, who, you know, sort of went out early. And then I had Sabalenka. That was her best player, but she had Sakari and Collins, who, you know, both went out pretty early as well. So Madison finished in first with 6 points, Laura 4, myself 3. That is a tough effort on the women's side.
Tough effort.
But
Patrick,
the men's side, bouncing back strong, because I won that one with, I think it's my first draft win. I never win these things. 14 points is how many points my team, because I had Medvedev and Sinner on my team. So that, yeah, obviously both those guys getting to the final, that pretty much sealed the deal.
Sealed it, yeah.
But Madison finished with 7 points. She was in second. She had both Fritz and Alcaraz on her team that scored some points for her. And then Laura she finished with 4 points. Tsitsipas was her top ranked player. And, you know, he got like a walkover, and then he won 1 match, and then he went out after that.
Bounce. Yeah.
Yeah. But those are fun to listen to if you ever want. I think next time, instead of picking the players based on like how good they are, their merit, I think we need to pick them based on like a story. Like you have to tell an anecdote of like, this is why I'm picking this player, because one time they did this, and has nothing to do with how good they are. And just see how it goes. Maybe for Mutua Madrid, we'll do that. But
or you guys can borrow or use my method. I think this, you can do a final, because you guys had 4. You guys can do a 2. You guys can do a 2.
Yep.
Like a true Vegas bet for 2, and then you can do 2 with a cool story or a cool So you have 4 on the men and the women.
Yeah, and maybe
in my opinion, because you know, people are gonna be like, why are you not picking Carlos? Why are you not picking Carlos? Well, okay, yeah, we know Carlos can maybe win, for example, you know.
Yeah.
And like, for example, Novak wasn't in it this year.
Yep.
You know, maybe, you know, just something where like you can't like not pick Novak, for example. You know? But at the same time, you got a player like Medvedev who's beaten Novak and Tsitsipas in a tournament.
Yeah.
You know, so it gives you a chance to really pick certain players that you know that can maybe be your guaranteed lock.
Yeah.
But at the same, we're gonna have fun with it. And then like again, you know, stories of Eubanks and Paguglia.
Like that's the kind of
Coco.
stuff. Like we're picking Eubanks because of these reasons, you know. I think that could be a fun.
Yeah, Coco, a hometown girl, you know. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I pick Coco a lot actually for my teams. I think I didn't get her in this. Did I get her in this one? Let's see who got Coco. It doesn't look like she got picked, so that must mean that we picked other top 10 players, but we'll just tell you, we made the mistake of not picking Carlos in our Indian Wells draft. Nobody picked him because he had been hurt so much leading into that tournament, and he had withdrawn from other tournaments like as recently as 2 weeks before Indian Wells. And so we were like, is he like not fully healthy? You know, is he going to win a match or two and then maybe have to retire in the middle of another one? And he won the tournament. So that won't happen again, I can assure you.
Well, as you know, the Masters just started, so you have to pick Tiger.
Oh yeah. Well,
you got to pick
a little draft for the Masters as well. I didn't pick Tiger. I wanted to, but what did he finish at? He was at 3 over when I last looked.
Correct. But it's one of those things where you got to pick Carlos. You know, even though the world #1 and stuff. You know.
Yeah. Tiger, he's gotten a few birdies. I'm seeing he's at 1 over now, so he's gotten at least 2 birds since I last watched. Or maybe he got an eagle. Who knows? But
let's see if he makes the cut. See if he make the cut.
Oh, that would be so great. I mean, that was amazing what he did last year, making the cut after. Well, yeah, I got a Tiger hat. I got to go put it on. I should have just worn it for the podcast. What am I doing? But
yeah, man, you never know. It's weird. They're echoing this may be his last. You never know. So just enjoy it.
Enjoy it for sure. Wes, I want to thank you for joining our podcast. Before we go, I want you to plug your rum cake. Plug the rum cake so people know.
We gotta get you one up there in the Midwest ASAP.
Yeah,
it's the best rum cake. We call it the best rum cake worldwide. The 305 rum cake, obviously 305 the Miami area code, and at the same time, Patrick, ladies and gentlemen, it has rum. It is a rum cake. So, purchase and oh yeah. But we do argue it's the best rum cake worldwide, and we're so grateful. And then guess what? Some people at the Dolphins are interested at Hard Rock, so we're working on that. Maybe next year we'll be here for you at the stadium. But we have a original, which is like a vanilla, chocolate, and pineapple. Chocolate #1 flavor, and you can get it on worldwidewest.com. World Wide West on social media, Instagram, World Wide West, all one word. And then it's great. It goes to people who just help me edit all my videos, people who help me edit my columns and stuff. And it goes to obviously running the site. Obviously I'm not as big as TennisONE, but at the end of the day, none of the stuff can work for free.
Yeah.
And never what we thought, just the rum cake sales that we get, we're able to invest it right back into the site. And it's a Miami staple here. It's really a Miami staple. And we use what's called the Haitian rum, Babaku rum. And it's great. It's great, Patrick. We gotta get you one down there. Comes to you sharing.
I didn't want to just order to my hotel room when I'm like, working hard every day and hardly probably, I don't know. I didn't want to waste it, like if I could only eat part of it or something. But now that I'm back, I'm sure Maggie, my fiance, she'd love some rum cake. So my dog.
Yeah, man. Exactly. And Maggie's in, I think you told me Maggie's in residency. So she would love to decompress,
She'd love to
unwind with a nice slice, man.
Yeah. I need to play something. So oh man, Wes, thanks for it was great to see you down there. I'm sorry that we didn't get to see each other as often as last year since we weren't. Wes thought I was just chilling on South Beach half the time, but believe you me, running around quite a bit down there.
No,
tournament.
Yeah, no, you really put it in, man. You guys put it in the app, man. It's great, and then I love following you guys. I know the complaints have lessened, but I'm always on the app when I can.
Well, we appreciate that. We know there's several apps out there, and if you're like me, you just have all of them because there's always something in each of them that they have to offer. But now, Wes, we appreciate you coming on, and looking forward already to next year's Miami Open and seeing you down there. We'll have to get you on for the draft next year so you can join in on that.
Yeah, whatever. Pre-draft, post-draft, I'm here for you, Patrick, man. I'm here. I love it, man. You guys are doing a great job.
Awesome. Thanks, Wes. We will be right back after this with Madison, who is in Charleston. We're going to talk a little Charleston tennis with the WTA 500 event down there. So stick with us. Thanks, guys. Hey guys, we are back with Madison Golden, TennisONE down in Charleston. First tournament that we are official journalists, right? Maybe second, but first of the year. How's it going down there?
Yeah, it's going so well down here in Charleston. Our coverage of this event is presented by Har-Tru, so it's been really cool to see the green clay for the first time. I personally have never seen a clay tournament in person, just watched on TV. And it's just, yeah, it's a beautiful tournament. It's very like intimate stadium, but the grounds are just gorgeous. There's so much to do on site. So I see why fans and players make it a stop on their tour for sure.
What do you think about watching tennis on the clay versus hard courts?
Yeah, so it's interesting for me, and kind of hearing the players talk about it too, it kind of makes sense. They said green clay is a good transition from hard court to red clay. And I kind of see that, like, obviously the sliding is different. So to see them do that more is really cool. But other than that, I mean, I see the similarities, but I also understand that it can be more difficult depending on the player and their style of game. So it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. I've never heard that, like transition from hard court to clay court, which I assume means the green clay is slower than red clay, which makes sense. But like in the US,
yeah.
I mean, there are some places with red clay, but if you ever play tournaments in the US on clay, most of the time it's green clay outside of the pro level. So yeah, definitely jealous. That stadium, how many people does that stadium seat? It looks really cool. And it's new, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they said last year was the first year that they had this tournament here.
Yeah.
I believe one of the ushers told me 11 the capacity.
Sorry, say it again. I think it cut out briefly.
Oh, sorry, 11,000.
11,000. Okay.
Yeah, so they told me that Elton John was the first performer to kind of open the stadium. I was like, that's pretty epic.
That's cool. Quick story about Elton John. I went to his farewell concert. Like it was before COVID even. It was probably 2019 with my dad. Farewell concert. And like at the end of the concert, he comes out in his pajamas and he's like, and he like walks onto the yellow brick road. Like, this is it for me, and he's still doing that same tour right now, like 4 years later. So I guess
that's a long farewell for
yeah.
Sir Elton John.
Yeah. Well, he's got to.
It's cool. There's actually Darius Rucker. People have told me that he comes to this tournament, so I am officially on the lookout every day. I've been, listening, making sure that they're not announcing it over PA because I'm such a celebrity buff. And my Uber driver, shout out to Michael. He's very in tuned with the celebrities, just like me. He also told me that Reese Witherspoon has a vacation home here.
Oh,
so wow. You guys, that could potentially.
Where do we rank those two celebrities, Darius Rucker and Reese? Like, I would say Reese Witherspoon is more well known probably than Darius Rucker. But I mean,
yes,
say Hootie. Everybody knows Hootie.
Oh,
I don't know.
He's amazing, so talented. So I would be happy to see either one, but I really think if I saw Reese, I would probably cry. I'm not kidding.
You have to get a TennisONE interview with Reese.
Yeah, exclusive.
Sweet. Speaking of seeing some cool stuff, you said there's been some good matches. Obviously, we saw on social media, if you follow pro tennis, Jess Pegula had quite a comeback yesterday. Were you watching that one live?
Yeah, that was absolutely insane. She was up 4-love in the second set, and I was watching it in the media room. What'd you say?
You won the first set as well, right?
Correct. Yep. So she was up a set, up 4-love in the second. I was watching in the media room and I was like, oh, I got to go down there because she's going to close this out. And then all of a sudden, Begu just started to come back. And then Jess, she was like shaken up a little bit. And then, yeah, right away in the third set, Begu goes up 4-love. Yeah. And Jess looks so frustrated. She's like, She slammed her racket. She was talking to her box, just like what the F is going on. Just didn't seem like she could win a game. She lost 10 straight.
Yeah. Wow.
So then she just won one game, and all of a sudden I just saw her attitude kind of start to change. She was able to break her. She held serve, and then she just all of a sudden was back in it, and then managed to pull it off and get the final set win 6-4. So it was really cool to see. And she spoke to Andrew Krasny on court after, and he basically just said, "What just happened?" And she's like, "Well, to be quite honest, I'm just tough.
Yeah.
I'm just tough."
She is.
So
Andrew should know, because in Miami, just literally a week ago or a week and a half ago, she was losing to Potapova in the third set. And like it seemed, I think it was 3-0 in the third or something. And she wasn't playing well. She was missing overhead, like easy overheads and stuff, and just looked out of sorts. And kind of same thing where she was clearly frustrated, looking at her box, kind of being like, what the F am I doing out here? But it just seemed like if she could stop missing the easy balls, that Potapova was going to get nervous trying to close her out, because she had actually lost to her in Indian Wells. And yeah, Jess just hung in there and started, making one more ball than she was. And next thing you know, she won, like came back and won third set, when it definitely looked like a lost cause. So yeah, Jess,
she's
fighter.
fun to watch.
Yeah,
she is. I love it.
You got a good one today, right?
And you don't see her. Yes, her and Badosa. So they both mentioned this, but Badosa was in Miami last year, which is where they played, and she had to withdraw, so they don't really count that. So other than that, we haven't seen them play against each other. So I have to say Badosa is playing so well this tournament. She looks really good. She seems to be in the right mental headspace as well. Just kind of talking about in her press conference, she's talked about just, falling from that world number 2 ranking to being in the 30s, which is where she's at now, and just trying to kind of get back to where she was last year. Obviously had some injuries. So she looks really good this tournament. Really, really good.
Nice. Well, yeah, I remember in Miami last year, she was like joking with us, because we were like, "Oh, you're up to number 4 in the ranking." She's like, "Actually, next week I'm going to be 3." And then she got to 2, and so she definitely checks those rankings. And it's obviously, once you get there, you don't want to leave so quickly. But I don't know, it's so tough. And there actually are a lot of female players that are having consistent winning results right now. Like people used to say that, oh, anybody can win on the women's side at any given day, but for the last year almost, that hasn't really. It's been Swiatek, Rybakina, even Krejcikova's doing pretty well, and then Sabalenka.
Yep.
So yeah, no, it'd be cool to see Badosa get in there, and she's obviously a big fan favorite. So, but you guys have a lot of good.
Yeah.
I mean, Ons is matches down there. That's cool to see, because she's kind of struggled recently. So
yeah, she's playing incredibly well as also this tournament. It's fun to see her kind of get back into her stride on clay. We know she won Madrid last year, so just to kind of see her. And she joked yesterday on court that she kind of had a rocky start to the second set, and she said, "No, that was actually my sister playing." Oh my. And she, typical Ons, just joking, but she pulled it together, and she's always just a joy to talk to. And we asked her on media day just kind of about what the reaction she's seen to Breakpoint. And she's like, "Yeah, it's been really cool. I just feel like I'm trying my best to stay as true to myself as I can, because I feel like people know me on tour as being very authentic, and I feel like she does such a great job with that always." So
yeah,
it's fun to see players like that have big goals.
Yeah, I think it's impossible for Ons to be anything but authentic. She's like, she's a real deal, super nice, friendly to every single person, always smiling, joking. Yeah, she's great.
And super talented, so a win-win.
Yeah. What I was gonna ask, how does this tournament compare to some of the other tournaments you've been to? Is there a cool signature cocktail? What kind of things do they have on the grounds there for people to do?
Yeah, so there's quite a bit. So Har-Tru has a tent. So I've stopped there a couple of times. They have like little games and little goodies to give out to people.
Have you met Si?
Yes, actually, yes. He said that you were his intern. Is that right?
I was Si's intern. He was like a Wilson legend. People in the tennis industry maybe know Si more than they know any other person. Like he knows everyone. So now he's at Har-Tru. So good for them.
Yes, I meant to tell you that. So I'm glad that we waited until the podcast to talk about it.
I knew this is their big show, so I figured he must be down there. But okay.
Yeah.
So they have
Yeah, he is. They have a booth. They're also doing, there's like several little areas with kind of games for fans to play. There's tons of food trucks, tons of food vendors. There are a couple signature cocktails, but I've heard that the most popular thing is the Kim Crawford Frosé, like a frozen rosé. I see a lot of people with that. So Kim Crawford, I think, is the wine sponsor of the tournament, or the alcohol sponsor. So that's cool to see. And then they are doing like a little kind of on the terrace. They're doing like little player interviews. So they'll go there and then they'll do the Tennis Channel desk and can actually stand right behind Steve Weissman as he's interviewing the players. So that's always fun to see, because I don't think I've been to a tournament where they've had the desk actually there. Yeah. So that's been fun. It's very well laid out. Like Athena Gibson is the other court where matches are played, and it's really easy to walk to. I would say the practice courts are super accessible for fans, so it's nice and intimate. Like I said, you can get really close to these players, and it's all open. Like you can go to any of the practice courts, so that's really cool. And then you see the water like right there. So it's a very beautiful facility and look very green. I noticed that as soon as I landed that it's so green here. They get a lot of moisture.
Okay. Well, that's good for the clay for sure, because you have to frequently so they don't get dry and kind of unplayable. But Har-Tru's on top of that, so they're
Heck yeah.
This is definitely the only pro tournament of this level played on green clay, so it's kind of cool to see. The other tournament going on in the U.S. is a men's clay tournament, but it's on red clay. They've had some really bad luck this week with rain. Like they've had almost 2 full days just like totally delayed and pushed to the next day. So you guys haven't had much rain over there?
No, not. We had a rain delay on Monday night, and it ended up pushing back a couple of matches to Tuesday. But besides that, and obviously they were able to complete those relatively quickly. So, however, it's supposed to rain this weekend.
Oof.
All day Saturday. I've heard mixed feelings about that from the locals. Some say, do the weather app, it's completely wrong. Others say, if it rains all day, like they'll for sure have to push it back. Like once it rains here, it doesn't stop. So I don't know. We'll have to just wait and see, I guess. But I'm hoping that they don't have to cancel or postpone anything, and then people don't have to play 2 matches on Sunday or what. How do they normally do that? Like in Houston, what are they going to have to do?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends how many matches get rained out, but they got to just start. Some of these tournaments, like 250s, 500s players get days off, especially the seeds, and sometimes like the top seeds don't even play until Thursday or something. So depending where it gets rained out, they're just going to have to start stacking the matches up, and in some cases where they were hoping to just let somebody play singles match today, and if they were in doubles, they play the doubles the next day. Now it's like, no, you're definitely playing both the same day. If you're only playing doubles, who knows? You might have to play 2 doubles matches in one day. So yeah, it's anything they can do to make sure that they don't have to keep playing the tournament on Monday. They definitely want to finish on the weekend, because if you do the final on a Monday, it's going to be tough for fans to come to, having to and everything. So yeah, it's
and the players, they already have like places to go next, so I'm sure it makes for a really difficult time.
So not fun for anyone. I mean, luckily clay is a surface where if it's kind of like spitting, you can play longer than hard court, because the clay kind of absorbs it a little bit. But once it really starts going, there's nothing you can do. But yeah, I mean, they've been talking about at the Masters for sure on Saturday and Sunday that it's going to rain. And I'm looking at a map right now. Charleston is almost straight east of Augusta. So it seems like whatever they get, you guys might get. But fingers crossed.
Yeah, it looks like Saturday's going to be tough, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know. It can change at the drop of a hat, is what I've been told. So,
plus, you're staying an extra day after the tournament. Did you have any like fun things you found to do on your one day there?
Yeah. So when I got in on Sunday, ended up having, flight canceled, got rerouted, spent 3 hours at LaGuardia Airport, which I have to say is a lot nicer than it used to be.
Way nicer.
So it's much better than the last time I was there. So I ended up getting in, and I had an Uber driver just recommend this place called Shim Creek that was close to my hotel for Sunday night. And it's really cool. It was right on the canal. They said that there's dolphins sometimes because there are a lot of shrimp boats. So I unfortunately didn't see any dolphins, but it was very beautiful, and I got to watch the sunset there. So that was cool. But I am going to go to downtown Charleston, I think, on Monday. I've heard that you have to do it. Yeah. Rich in history. There's so much to see. But there's also, I didn't realize that there's so many areas. Like the tournament is on Daniel Island, which is completely different than like downtown Charleston, or I'm in Mount Pleasant. So there's kind of like 4 major areas in Charleston. So very cool city.
Nice. Well, if you see, have you seen Danny Kendall down there?
I have not.
He's definitely down there. He's the guy that's always kind of like on the court waiting to walk the players back to wherever after the match. Yeah, he's anyway. He's a good friend of TennisONE because he's at like every tournament. But he lives in Charleston, so you should definitely ask him too.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, he might be I wonder if he's in the media room ever. I'll have to make sure I introduce myself if I see him.
Maybe once in a while. I'll send you a picture of him because I guarantee you've seen this tournament and the tournaments. But yeah. Well, cool, Madison. I don't want to keep you from the tournament. You got to get over there. But before we go, I just want to let you know you won the Miami women's draft.
So, wow.
I'm not sure if you were checking the score, but
I've never won. For the record, I've literally never won. I've lost men's, women's for every draft that we've done.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Rybakina took you home. She got I have to say, none of us did very well in the women's draft. We had a lot of 0s and 1s up there for points. But yeah, Rybakina was definitely the top scorer. You actually would have won with just her. That's how bad Laura and I did.
Oh. Oh, wow.
Laura had Sabalenka.
She's all I needed.
Yeah.
Oh, so she had some good. That was the women's one was kind of tough.
Yeah, it was for sure. None of us picked Kvitova, so shame on us. The men's, I had Medvedev and Sinner, so that was good. That was good for me.
Yeah, you killed it. I had a couple players who made it somewhat far.
Well, he had Alcaraz, so I mean, he almost got to the final, but I think he was just a little tired at the end. He just won Indian Wells, and yeah, once we got to
he's injured, right?
Yeah, I mean, after the match, he announced that he's got another injury. So I don't know. Sucks to see. Obviously he's going to just try to get ready for Roland Garros and maybe play a tournament beforehand. But I don't know. We got to keep him on the court. It's night and day between like how many people are at his matches versus some of the other ones. It's just like totally packed. Everybody's always asking, what session is Alcaraz playing? Like that's the session we want to buy tickets to. And so all the celebrities are.
And he had it. Yeah, I was just going to say, you guys had some celebrity encounters in Miami. That is so cool.
Well, it was like after every Alcaraz match, it was like he was obligated to meet somebody who, and I think after the first win, Jimmy Butler wanted to meet him. I'm trying to think who after the second win was there. The third win was going to be Luka Doncic. He was there. But that was when Sinner beat Luka, or I'm sorry, when Sinner beat Alcaraz. And I don't know, I guess he didn't want to meet Sinner because he kind of just left after Alcaraz lost. But
he's like, I'm good, actually. Oh, no. Sinner's so great, too. He played awesome.
No, for sure. He's a great guy. So that's Luka's miss. But it was funny during that match on the Jumbotron. They kept showing Luka, like during one of the changeovers. they would show Luca, and then they would show Jimmy. And then they go back to Luca and then back to Jimmy. And every time they showed Luca, people would boo. And then every time they showed Jimmy, people would go nuts because obviously he's the Miami Heat's star player. So
that's awesome.
It was pretty funny.
And then Jamie Foxx, Oscar winner.
Yeah, he was there
for Eubanks, right?
He was there for Eubanks and Medvedev. Oh. So yeah, he's looking pretty strong. Like, I wonder what movie he's in next, because like I don't remember him being. I don't know.
No, he looks built. Like, yeah. I don't think I've seen him like in that good of shape since Django Unchained, which was a while ago. So,
which is funny because I literally watched that movie in my hotel room one of the first nights I was at the tournament, just because it was on like one of the HBO channels, and I just needed something on the TV, and I turned it on, and the next thing you know, he's at the tournament. I was like, all right.
You manifested it. Great film as well. So,
oh, yeah. So good, that movie. But there was one other celebrity. Oh, Mike Tyson was there too.
Yeah, he was in Del Rey, which was crazy.
Yeah, well, his daughter
likes the Florida tennis.
Yeah, exactly. His daughter, she's probably like 15, 16, 17, somewhere in there. But she's a good tennis player, so he's definitely gotten into it probably through her. But
very cool. Love that. Love to see it. So stay tuned if I see Darius or Miss Reese Witherspoon here.
Fingers crossed for you. That'd be exciting. Unfortunately, no Fritz friends at this event. So
no girlfriends. I didn't even see Paula's boyfriend, who I also kind of keep an eye on. So
yeah, I mean, he's
not here
for sure. He was in Miami.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's got me a little starstruck in Silicon Valley last year. I didn't really know what to. I'm just seeing people like who are that good looking. I'm like, I don't even know how to process that.
That guy's a 12 out of 10 at least. So
yeah. So is Paula. So good for her. Good for them.
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue with that.
Beautiful couple.
Oh man. All right. Well, Madison, thanks for squeezing in the pod when you're at Charleston. Enjoy the rest of the tournament. You want to give one pick who you think's gonna win it? You've been watching the matches.
I feel like whoever wins the Pegula Badosa match has a good shot, at least at making the final.
Yeah.
Would love to see Ons. She made it last year. Can't discount Belinda Bencic, last year's champ.
No,
she played well last night. She took down Shelby Rogers, the local fan favorite. So that was, she's been playing really well. She really likes it here, she said. And the fans do like her. Obviously, the Rogers match was a little different because she's home crowd, but
for sure.
And Madison Keys,
she won
former champ. She did. She beat Lynette in the third set. She had a really great third set. So we'll see. There's some good players still left.
Yeah, it's a good looking draw here. So excited to see how that turns out. We'll have anybody listening. We've got obviously all the scores and a lot of. Unfortunately, we can't show the highlights in our app to U.S. users. If you are outside the U.S., you'll be able to watch them. But the WTA has different rules than ATP, and you have to restrict the access to their highlights within the country where the tournament is played. So Miami, we had the highlights because we're a partner of that event. But Charleston, we can't show the highlights unless you live outside the U.S. But Madison's doing daily recaps, so check those out for sure. And we've got some interviews, transcripts coming in from all the press conferences. So yeah, thanks for putting all that in there, Madison. And easy way to follow the tournament.
It's been good. Exactly. And yeah, social obviously a big part of it for this one. So that's been very fun, especially with how beautiful the grounds are. So Thanks so much, Patrick.
Yeah, no problem, Madison. Enjoy the tournament. And thanks for listening, guys. If you're on Spotify, we appreciate a follow. We just appreciate a rating. That'd just be just huge. So comments on YouTube or in the app, we'll answer any questions you guys have during episodes. So see you next time. Thanks, Madison.